I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine if right now someone just walked into the room you're in and handed you a heavy stack of paper.
Like a physical printout.
Yeah, exactly, a printed transcript. But it's a transcript of your last 72 hours of group chats. You know, your text messages, your social media comments, literally everything.
Oh, wow. That's a terrifying thought for most people.
Right. Every passing thought you just fired off at a red light, every little defensive reaction, every inside joke. I mean, would you be totally comfortable with what that printed record says about you?
I think almost everyone would cringe at least a little bit.
For sure. But more importantly, if we laid all those messages out side by side, would they paint a picture of a, consistent, rational human being? Or would they expose a deeply compartmentalized and highly contradictory one?
The latter, almost certainly.
Well, for a YouTube user going by the handle @SunflowerGenX, we actually have the answer to that. We've got our hands on this highly concentrated digital artifact. It's a 72-hour window of her live chat logs, specifically August 12th through the 14th in the year 2026.
The completely unfiltered look.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we are going to act as digital archaeologists today, but with a very specific lens. We're mapping out the behavioral ecosystem of this chat to look at how the internet basically forces a person into these rigid defensive postures that completely contradict their own actions.
Yeah, the premise here is really about the illusion of personal consistency. I mean, most of us operate under the assumption that our core identity is unified.
Right, we think we make sense.
Exactly. We think, I'm a fundamentally reasonable person, or I avoid unnecessary conflict. But when you isolate a digital footprint like this, 97 messages over 3 days in a really insulated online environment, the cognitive dissonance is just unavoidable.
It's just glaring.
It is. So we're going to examine these glaring inconsistencies in Gen X's online persona. And the goal isn't just to list what she says, but to really understand the underlying mechanisms. The why.
Why she says one thing and does the exact opposite.
Exactly. Why are her stated beliefs in such violent opposition to her logged behavior? And to understand that, we first have to really grasp the specific ecosystem she's operating in.
Yeah, because this isn't just a random Twitch stream about a video game. I was reading through the background material, and this chat is happening within a very specific subculture. It's the gig economy YouTube space.
A fascinating corner of the internet.
It really is. It's a community made up of people who drive for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash. And that context feels vital here. I mean, these are people who spend 8, 10, maybe 12 hours a day entirely alone in their cars.
Right, the isolation is key.
So the YouTube live chat, it essentially functions as their digital water cooler, doesn't it?
It acts as their entire social infrastructure during working hours. And that creates a very unique psychological pressure cooker. I mean, when your physical reality is that transient, you're just following GPS pins all day alone.
Right, you're completely unmoored physically.
Yeah, so your digital reality becomes your primary social anchor. The stakes of these chat room interactions are artificially inflated because they are filling this massive social void.
That makes total sense. And the medium itself plays a part too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The medium of live chat requires rapid-fire, character-limited engagement. Nuance is completely stripped away. You can't have a long, measured debate while you're driving and just quickly glancing at a phone.
You'd crash your car.
Right.
Right,
You have
yeah.
to communicate in highly potent hyperbolic bursts. So this environment inherently favors extreme tribalism and very rigid persona construction.
Which brings us perfectly to the foundation of Gen X's entire persona in these logs. I mean, I look at her first few messages on August 13th, and she's actively constructing this origin story for herself.
Like a superhero origin story, almost.
Seriously. But as this hardened, grizzled veteran of the internet, she types, quote, "It's a dog-eat-dog world in this space. You have to be a troll or you get eaten alive."
Eaten alive, that's highly dramatic for a chat room about food delivery.
It is. And she follows that up with, quote, "Being nice didn't work for me in this space. I had to learn to get tough skin fast to stick around." So she's framing her current behavior as just a purely reactive survival mechanism.
It's a fascinating narrative of forced adaptation. She's basically claiming that the environment itself, this dog-eat-dog digital space, completely stripped her of her natural niceness.
Like she had no choice.
Exactly. By claiming she had to get tough skin, she preemptively absolves herself of any aggressive behavior she might show later.
Oh, that's clever. It's an excuse built right into the introduction.
It really is. It's a psychological mechanism where the user frames themselves as a reluctant participant in the toxicity. The underlying logic she's presenting is basically, I am not naturally aggressive. The structural brutality of this community forced me to don this armor.
The armor of the troll.
Right. It allows her to participate in hostile behavior while internally maintaining a self-concept of being a fundamentally good, maybe victimized person.
But looking at the timeline, I have a really hard time buying the whole reluctant participant angle.
Why is that?
Because she leans so heavily into this idea that she is completely unbothered by the drama, yet she is literally constantly talking about it. On August 13th, she types, quote, "I am to the point, I don't care if people believe me or not, lady sick of having to defend myself."
So she's claiming total apathy.
Total apathy. She even labels herself, she literally says, "I am boring content." She paints this picture of someone sitting quietly in the corner just trying to do her job.
But the data contradicts that.
Violently. Just a few hours prior, on August 12th, she drops this massive dramatic statement into the chat. She says, quote, "My stalker loves me. What can I say? He thinks about me morning, noon, and night."
Wow.
And she starts complaining that people are making YouTube shorts and videos about her.
The contradiction there is structural. I mean, you cannot simultaneously be boring content that nobody should care about while also actively feeding a narrative that you have a dedicated stalker.
A stalker who obsesses over you morning, noon, and night. Her words.
Right. The hypocrisy lies in her simultaneous demand for invisibility and her demand for center stage victimhood.
Okay, I want to push back on that interpretation just a bit, though. I mean, isn't claiming to be boring content just a standard de-escalation tactic?
How do you mean?
Like, if I'm caught in a digital pile-on, my instinct might be to just minimize my own footprint. To say, hey, nothing to see here, I'm boring, move along.
Oh, like a defense mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a Hollywood celebrity calling the paparazzi on themselves to get their name in the paper and then immediately complaining about the flash photography when they walk outside. Is it necessarily hypocrisy, or is she just trying to pull the ripcord and eject from a stressful situation?
Well, that would be a highly logical interpretation if her subsequent actions actually aligned with pulling the ripcord.
Which they don't.
Not at all. Minimization is a recognized de-escalation tactic, sure. But we have to look at the mechanism of her behavior, not just the isolated text.
Look at what she does, not what she says.
Exactly. If the goal was true de-escalation, if she genuinely believed she was boring and truly possessed that tough skin she claimed, the behavioral response would just be disengagement.
She would just log off.
Right, she would close the chat window. The digital architecture allows for instantaneous exit. But she doesn't exit.
She logs 97 messages across a 3-day window.
Yes. She is actively monitoring who is making videos about her. The act of typing, sick of having to defend myself into a public forum, is, structurally speaking, an invitation for further engagement.
It's a broadcast.
It is a broadcast of grievance, not a withdrawal.
That's a great distinction. It's basically like someone standing in the middle of a crowded room with a megaphone shouting, "I demand to be ignored."
Exactly. The medium contradicts the message.
If you really want to be ignored, you put the megaphone down and leave the room. But she's using the megaphone to complain about the noise. And you see this in the physical world too, right?
Oh, all the time.
You meet people whose entire dating profile or identity is wrapped up in how much they hate drama. But if you look at their social circles, they are consistently at the epicenter of catastrophic interpersonal conflicts.
Exactly. In psychology, there is a concept related to how we project our internal anxieties outward. The traits or situations people most loudly disavow are often the ones they are most deeply entangled with.
So by constantly declaring her emotional detachment,
Gen X is inadvertently revealing her intense emotional enmeshment in this gig worker YouTube community. She cares deeply that the chat room perceives her as a hardened survivor.
rather than just a vulnerable participant.
Right, her victimhood, the stalker, the videos being made about her, the dog-eat-dog environment, it all serves a very specific utilitarian purpose.
What purpose?
It acts as a license for aggression. Because she perceives herself as perpetually under siege, she feels justified in preemptively attacking others.
Which is the absolute perfect bridge to how that aggression actually manifests in these logs. Because she isn't just defending her own perimeter here, she's aggressively policing the borders of everyone else's interactions.
She becomes the authority figure.
Yeah, we see this massive shift from defensive posturing to active enforcement. Let's look at how she treats a user named Jackie. On August 12th, Gen X has this incredibly visceral reaction to something Jackie says.
What does she type?
She types, quote, "You are not the police of whom I speak to. Jackie, kindly remove your big nose out of my conversation."
Wow.
I mean, that is a blowtorch of a sentence. Remove your big nose out of my conversation.
It is an absolute rejection of oversight. She is establishing a highly rigid, militant boundary.
She's basically saying, do not look at me, do not talk to me about who I talk to.
Right, and the underlying sociology here is fascinating. In digital spaces, where physical boundaries don't exist, users have to establish territory through rhetoric.
By drawing verbal lines in the sand.
Exactly. By telling Jackie she is not the police, Gen X is demanding total, unquestioned autonomy over her own social interactions. She is stating categorically that no one has the jurisdiction to question who she speaks with.
Right. She claims total sovereignty over her digital space. But here is where the X-ray of the digital soul gets really murky.
Because she immediately contradicts it.
Because she grants herself the exact policing authority she just violently denied Jackie. Just a little while later, she shifts her focus to another user, someone named Scott.
And what does she say to Scott?
She casually demands of him, quote, "Why you loving on Pedro so much, Scott?"
What's fascinating here is how quickly the human brain compartmentalizes its own boundary violations while hyperfixating on the perceived boundary violations of others.
It's staggering, honestly. It's like a traffic cop who writes you a massive ticket for going 5 miles over the speed limit and then immediately turns on their siren to run a red light just to get to the donut shop.
That is a perfect analogy.
I mean, completely oblivious to the irony. She literally reprimands Jackie for acting like the police of her conversations and then immediately deputizes herself to interrogate Scott about his viewing habits. How does the brain hold those two opposing concepts without just collapsing?
It does so through narrative framing. The brain avoids collapse by applying completely different contextual rules to the self versus the other.
Okay, break that down for me.
It's an extension of the fundamental attribution error. When Jackie questions Gen X perceives it as a hostile, unwarranted intrusion.
A big nose violating her territory.
Exactly. The motivation is assumed to be malicious control. However, when Gen X questions Scott about Pedro, she does not view herself as an intruder.
She thinks she's helping.
Right. She likely frames her own action internally as just holding a friend accountable or gathering necessary intelligence about where Scott's loyalties lie.
Wow, so the rules literally don't apply to her in her own mind.
She is completely insulated from her own hypocrisy because she evaluates Jackie based on the perceived action, which is policing. But she evaluates herself based on her perceived intent.
Which is protecting the community.
Exactly.
That distinction between evaluating action versus intent explains so much of digital discourse. I mean, we see this dominance ritual play out again with the third user, Cherry.
The Cherry interactions are very telling.
Gen X has this bizarre push and pull dynamic going on with her. At one point, Gen X dismisses her entirely, typing, quote, "You're not that interesting to me either, Cherry."
Which is that defensive, aloof posture again.
Right. She is elevating herself by devaluing Cherry, but she doesn't actually stop talking to her.
No, she doesn't. And that's the tell. After explicitly stating Cherry holds no interest for her, she continues to engage.
She actually issues a command. She says, quote, "Draw me a map, Cherry, will you please?"
A rhetorical command, but a command nonetheless.
So wait, I read that part in the logs, and it genuinely confused me. Why would you demand a favor, even a sarcastic rhetorical favor, like, "Draw me a map," from someone you literally just declared uninteresting?
It seems counterintuitive.
If someone is uninteresting to me at a party, I walk away. I go to the snack table. I don't ask them to fetch me a drink.
Right, but the interaction isn't about the exchange of information or genuine interest. It is entirely about establishing a hierarchy.
A power play.
Exactly. By telling Cherry she is uninteresting, Gen X attempts to lower Cherry's social standing in the chat. By then demanding that Cherry draw a map, Gen X is demanding labor and compliance.
Even if it's fake labor.
It's a subtle but potent display of dominance. Gen X is demonstrating to the rest of the chat room that she dictates the terms of engagement.
She's the one in charge.
She decides when Jackie is out of line. She decides when Scott needs to explain his allegiances. And she decides when Cherry is permitted to speak and when she is expected to just serve as a foil for Gen X's rhetoric.
It really paints a picture of a user who wants all the neurological rewards of a community. You know, the attention, the ability to assert dominance, the audience. But she wants absolutely none of the social obligations.
She wants the authority of the hall monitor, but violently rejects the idea that the rules apply to her.
Exactly. And that desire to control the narrative, it isn't just restricted to her immediate circle of friends. In fact, her most intense focus isn't on her friends at all.
It's on her enemies.
Yes. This ecosystem is built around conflict, and Gen X is highly attuned to the perceived enemies of her faction. Which brings us to what I found to be the most bizarre aspect of these entire 72 hours of logs.
The parasocial element.
I'm calling it the parasocial hater ecosystem. So far, we've seen her play the victim and play the cop. Now we get to see her as a dedicated, obsessed audience member to the exact content she claims is ruining her space.
The people she claims forced her to get tough skin.
Right. There are three main antagonists that Genix brings up repeatedly: Cram, Flex, and DJ. Let's break down her critiques of them, starting with Cram. What is her specific issue with him?
Her critique of Cram is really rooted in disgust and a perceived lack of loyalty. On August 12th, she states plainly, quote, "Cram is like spam icky."
Spam icky, very high-level discourse.
And she escalates this by saying, "I would rather have Sam back than have Cram here."
So suggesting he's basically the absolute bottom of the barrel.
Exactly. By August 13th, she begins analyzing his behavior during a specific live stream. She labels him a fence rider and the new Bobby.
Meaning he won't take a side.
Right. She specifically mocks his interaction with Flex, noting that Cram doesn't want to anger Flex, so he tiptoes with his questions.
Oh, wow.
She describes this behavior as pathetic, claiming he looked like he was tiptoeing in a garden over there.
Okay, so Cram is icky, a pathetic fence rider, a coward who is terrified of angering Flex, and someone who refuses to pick a side. That is a highly specific behavioral critique.
She's been watching him closely.
Clearly. What about Flex himself? How does she view him?
Flex is characterized as a manipulator and a doomed fraud. She asserts, without any hesitation, Flex loves to lie.
Just flat out loves to lie.
She accuses him of artificially inflating drama for views, stating he makes it sound he's got breaking news over there, and she is entirely confident in his impending downfall.
She predicts his channel will fail.
She types, "Flex will lose his channel again," and cry, adding that it's only a matter of time.
So we have a manipulative liar who is actively deceiving his audience and is destined to lose his platform. And then there's the third guy, DJ. The critique of DJ feels even more personal than the other two.
It is profoundly personal. With DJ, she attacks his autonomy and his masculinity directly.
What does she say?
She types, "And DJ, you are a beta male CG, pays for your whole existence."
Ouch.
She is stripping him of any independent value, suggesting he is merely a subservient extension of another user, CG.
So let's look at the totality of this hit list. We have Cram, the pathetic tiptoeing coward, Flex, the lying, manipulative fraud, and DJ, the subservient beta male who can't even fund his own existence.
A clear out group.
Here's where it gets really interesting when we look at the concept of hate watching. If Cram is so repulsive and Flex is such a liar and DJ is so utterly beneath her respect, why does she have encyclopedic knowledge of their daily activities?
Right, that's the core paradox.
I mean, she knows exactly how Cram asks questions. She knows exactly how Flex formats his breaking news.
This touches on hate watching as a vital driver of algorithmic engagement on platforms like YouTube. The hypocrisy is that she is a dedicated consumer of the very toxicity she complains about.
She's actively funding it with her time.
She actively admits her consumption. At one point, she says outright, "I watch them." I'm not going to say I don't.
So she owns it.
She does. But it goes way beyond casual viewing.
Yeah.
She is analyzing the micro-expressions of their content. To know that Cram was tiptoeing around specific questions with Flex requires highly focused, sustained attention.
You can't get that from a passing glance.
No, she isn't just seeing these people in passing. She is actively studying them.
It's the ultimate digital paradox. I actually pulled another quote from August 12th that just blew my mind when I read it. The chat is scrolling by quickly, right? And Genix suddenly panics that she's missing out on the drama.
What does she say?
She types, quote, "So does that mean we're all talking about Flex?" I'm not sure if I followed all that.
She wants to be in the loop.
She is desperate to stay in the loop. I mean, if this were really a dog-eat-dog world that forced her to grow a thick skin just to survive, why is she running back into the jaws of the dog?
It completely undermines her origin story.
Why is she terrified of missing a conversation about a liar she supposedly despises?
Because the hatred is functional. In isolated digital ecosystems, defining yourself by your enemies is actually the most efficient way to build a personal brand.
Oh, like an in-group, out-group dynamic.
An in-group, out-group dynamic on steroids. By performing her disgust for Cram's fence riding, she is implicitly signaling to her own audience, users like Roy and Lady, that she's courageous and decisive.
She's the anti-Cram.
Exactly. By attacking DJ's independence, she is projecting her own perceived strength. The psychological concept here is identity construction through opposition.
I am strong because they are weak.
Yes. She doesn't just hate watch them. She utilizes them as raw material to construct her tough skin persona.
But help me understand the mechanics of this from a platform perspective. Because the irony here is so thick you could literally cut it with a knife.
The platform mechanics are where it gets truly cyclical.
Right, because she insults DJ by saying CG pays for your whole existence. But by watching Flex's stream to see Cram tiptoe around him, and by constantly discussing them in other gig economy chats, isn't she literally paying for their existence too?
Absolutely. The YouTube algorithm does not differentiate between a viewer who loves a creator and a viewer who loathes them.
A view is a view.
It only measures watch time, engagement, and retention. I would compare this dynamic to an autoimmune disease within the community.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to look at it.
An autoimmune response is when the body's defense mechanisms attack its own healthy tissue. Gene X views herself as a defense mechanism.
She thinks she's the white blood cell.
Right. She thinks she is calling out the liars, the fakes, the fence riders. But her hyper-engagement with them, the constant watching, the commenting, the cross-pollinating of their drama into other chats,
It spreads the virus.
it is the very mechanism that keeps their channels financially and algorithmically viable. She is subsidizing the exact behavior she claims to abhor.
It's incredible. She is literally the engine driving the machine she complains is running her over.
Exactly.
If she genuinely wanted Flex to lose his channel and cry, the only winning move is not to play. Total disengagement. Starve the channel of the metrics it needs to survive.
But she cannot do that.
Because without the dirty streets of internet drama, her tough skin has no utility. I mean, a warrior without a war is just a person standing in a field in very heavy armor.
That is a highly accurate assessment of the psychological trap she is in. And the cognitive load of maintaining that heavy armor while actively seeking out battles to justify wearing it is exhausting.
Yeah, it has to be. You can't stay at a 10 out of 10 all day.
Which is why, intermittently, throughout these 72 hours, we see a stark behavioral pivot. When the dissonance of thriving in the toxicity she claims to hate becomes too much, she completely retreats.
Which brings us to a really fascinating shift in the logs, because she suddenly pivots away from all the warfare and dives headfirst into the past. We see this immense, sudden wave of nostalgia from her.
Nostalgia is a powerful tool online.
She tries to bond with her in-group, specifically users named Roy and Lady, over this highly romanticized version of what she calls the old school days. And the contrast between what she remembers and what she is actively doing in the present is jarring.
Nostalgia in digital spaces often serves as a palate cleanser for toxic behavior. In the logs, Jinax frequently references a period from roughly 3 years ago.
And the memories she brings up are incredibly mundane, almost aggressively wholesome.
They really are.
I mean, especially compared to calling people beta males a few hours prior. She reminisces about a time they were, quote, making candles and shit.
Candle makers.
Candle making. She references a dead horse video that they all used to laugh at. She tells Roy to show Cram the safety video because it was a classic piece of community lore.
She's establishing a shared history.
She talks about bringing back the whiteboard. Honestly, it sounds like a middle school classroom, not a dog gig worker battleground.
She even references highly specific logistical events to prove her long-term integration into the group.
Yeah, the hotel room story.
She brings up a time Roy was streaming from a hotel room because the water main in his house broke, noting, "I remember because I wanted that picture in the background."
She remembers the specific background picture from 3 years ago.
She also jokes about researching underwater basket weaving and claims that for every splinter she got, she blamed Roy.
Underwater basket weaving and splinters. I mean, she also talks about another user, Torp, recalling that she learned 2 years ago he fixes cars, which is why, quote, he is always covered head to toe in dirt and lives.
It paints a picture of this idyllic, innocent, almost pastoral digital community.
Just a bunch of delivery drivers hanging out after their shifts, making inside jokes about broken pipes and dirty mechanics. And she explicitly longs for this era. She types, old school needs to come back.
But then she drops a line that shatters the whole illusion.
Right. She drops this line to Roy that just crystallizes the entire hypocrisy of her account. She types, quote, you should go back old school, Roy. It's really dirty out in these streets.
It's really dirty out in these streets.
I mean, wow.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the apex of her compartmentalization. She perceives the current environment as polluted.
Corrupted by drama and stalkers and liars.
And she is yearning for the pure, clean days of old school YouTube. Yet she is actively participating in and generating the dirt.
It's baffling. I was trying to think of an analogy for this. It's like someone standing on the deck of a ship looking at the water and complaining about how polluted the ocean has become over the last 3 years.
Right.
They're giving these long, poetic speeches about how clear the water used to be. But while they are giving the speech, they are actively shoveling coal ash directly over the railing into the water. I mean, how can she tell Roy the streets are dirty when she is the one currently throwing the trash?
Because in this context, nostalgia is not a genuine desire to return to a simpler time. It is a weaponized social construct.
Weaponized how?
By constantly proving she was there 3 years ago, by recounting the specific details of the hotel room and the water main, she is asserting a hierarchical dominance over newer members of the community.
Oh, I see. She's gatekeeping.
She is establishing her pedigree as a legacy user. It's a way of saying, I possess the institutional memory of our golden age, therefore my opinions carry more weight.
So the nostalgia isn't about peace at all. It's just another form of warfare.
Exactly.
She's basically using the memory of making candles to bludgeon people in the present.
Precisely. She completely ignores the structural reality of her own behavior. I mean, if old school was truly characterized by innocent jokes and camaraderie, her current behavior is the exact mechanism that destroyed it.
Right. Policing Jackie's boundaries, insulting DJ's masculinity, hate watching Flex.
Exactly. The community didn't passively become dirty. It became dirty through millions of micro-interactions, exactly like the one she's generating right now.
But she refuses to see herself as the source.
She refuses to take accountability for her own muddy boots.
Ugh.
She views the dirt as a weather event that happened to her, rather than a landscape she helped pave.
Which is a perfect segue into how she views the output of the people around her. Because she doesn't just judge their character or their loyalties. She actually fancies herself a high-level critic of their actual entertainment value.
The critic persona.
Yeah, we've seen her as the victim, the hall monitor, the hate watcher, and the nostalgic elitist. But her most hypocritical role might be her self-appointed position as the arbiter of quality content.
Yes. Gen X operates under the assumption that the ecosystem owes her a certain caliber of intellectual stimulation.
Let's examine her critique of the creator named Pedro. She launches this highly aggressive aesthetic and intellectual attack on his channel.
What does she claim?
She claims it is filled with, quote, repetitive content and nonsense that don't give gig workers much help in the brainpower department.
Brainpower department.
And she summarizes her total disdain by stating, quote, I would rather watch a slug move than Pedro's channel.
So she attacking his intellectual value directly.
Don't give gig workers much help in the brainpower department. That is a fascinating phrase. She is acting as the intellectual vanguard for the entire gig economy.
She's demanding high-level, intellectually robust, highly varied content.
Exactly. She is deeply offended by the idea of repetition and low brain power. And she doesn't stop with Pedro, right? She goes after other creators for purely stylistic choices, too.
Correct. Her critiques often devolve into superficial mockery. She dismisses one channel entirely by referring to it as the bowling ball with legs channel.
The bowling ball with legs?
And she takes issue with the fact that people are giggling on it. She targets another user named Dino, and her offense here is purely linguistic.
What did Dino do?
She types, why is Dino referring to himself in third person? And she follows it up with, I never heard a man refer to himself in third person. That was a first.
She's just policing grammar at this point.
She even mocks the idea that Dino might put a warning label on his channel for sensitive viewers, framing him as absurd and theatrical.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. She is dissecting Pedro for being repetitive and lacking brain power. She is mocking Dino for his bizarre communication quirks. She is demanding top-tier, highly original entertainment that respects her intellect.
That's the standard she sets.
So what does this all mean when we look in the mirror for a second? Let's look at the data set we are holding. 97 messages over 72 hours. Does Gen X's own output scream high brain power?
This is where the structural hypocrisy of the digital consumer is fully exposed. Gen X demands exceptional, varied, intellectually stimulating quality from the ecosystem, yet her own contribution to this ecosystem is a monolith of repetitive grievance.
Just a wall of complaints.
She critiques Pedro for repetitive content, yet her 97 messages are a masterclass in repetition. She reminds the chat endlessly that Cram is a fence rider.
Constantly.
She reminds them endlessly that Flex is a liar. She reminds them endlessly that she has tough skin and doesn't care. The content she generates is identical in structure to the content she condemns.
Her content is the literal definition of repetitive nonsense. I mean, it's Cram is spam, DJ is a beta, remove your big nose, Jackie. Where is the high-level gig worker brain power in that?
It's completely absent.
And her critique of Dino referring to himself in the third person is astounding to me. She finds his linguistic quirk to be this massive, mockable offense, completely oblivious to how aggressive, erratic, and utterly bizarre her own communication style appears to an objective observer.
She lacks that mirror.
She literally went from talking about underwater basket weaving to asserting that she has a stalker who thinks about her morning, noon, and night. If anyone needs a warning label for sensitive viewers, it might be the person throwing blowtorches at people for asking a question.
It requires a profound lack of self-reflective capacity to operate as a harsh, unyielding critic of others while contributing zero constructive value yourself.
It's wild.
And we have to remember her own baseline admission from the very beginning. She stated, "I am boring content."
Oh, right, the apathy defense.
She knows, on a subconscious level, that she is not providing entertainment, insight, or value to the community. Yet she feels perfectly entitled to demand it from Pedro, to mock Dino, and to deride the bowling ball with legs.
She wants the premium cable package for free.
Exactly. She views herself strictly as a consumer, someone the world exists to entertain to her exacting standards, while granting herself a total exemption from the obligation to provide anything of value in return.
She is the ultimate heckler. I mean, she's the person sitting in the back of the theater, arms crossed, screaming that the dialogue is weak and the actors are repetitive.
While doing nothing herself.
But if you handed her the script and shoved her on stage, she would just stand there and complain that the stage lights are too bright and giving her a headache. She demands a Michelin star meal while actively throwing mud around the kitchen.
That really sums up the functional reality of her presence in this chat log.
Uh.
When we pull back and look at the entirety of this 72-hour window, we see a really intricate web of cognitive compartmentalization.
It's a masterclass in denial.
We have a user who defines herself as a detached, tough-skinned survivor forced into hostility by a dog-eat-dog world, yet she constantly initiates the bullying and the aggressive boundary policing.
We have someone who fiercely defends her absolute right to speak to whoever she wants without interference, telling people to keep their big noses out, but who immediately turns around and interrogates a friend about his own viewing habits.
Exactly. We have a user who loudly proclaims her visceral disgust for icky creators and lying manipulators, yet she actively hate-watches them.
She memorizes their micro-behaviors.
And she funds their algorithmic survival through her dedicated attention.
And finally, we have someone who uses the pure, wholesome nostalgia of the old school days to claim superiority, all while actively throwing trash onto the dirty streets of the present day, demanding high-intellect content while producing nothing but repetitive, petty squabbling.
It is a stunning display of how the internet fractures our sense of consistency.
It really is.
This raises an important question, I think. Because while it is easy to analyze Jing X through these logs, her behavior is merely a concentrated, extreme manifestation of a dynamic we all participate in.
We all do it to some degree.
We all curate our digital identities. We all have a narrative of who we are. You know, the patient partner, the hardworking employee, the voice of reason in our friend group.
The person who hates drama.
Right. But we have to ask ourselves, how often does our actual logged behavior, the snap reactions in a late-night text thread, the passive-aggressive emails, the doom scrolling, the algorithmic hate-watching we engage in when we think no one is looking, actually align with that curated identity?
Which brings us right back to the question I asked you at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Yeah.
That heavy stack of printed paper. The unedited, unfiltered X-ray of your digital soul.
The 72-hour transcript.
Yeah. I want you to really think about it. If you had to stand trial tomorrow, and the jury wasn't allowed to hear your internal monologue or your justifications or your dog-eat-dog origin story.
Just the text.
If the absolute only evidence of your character was your last 100 YouTube, Twitch, or group chat messages, would the jury see you as the consistent, rational hero of your own story? Or would they look at that murky, chaotic landscape of text and see the exact same contradictions we just spent the last hour dissecting?
It's a sobering thought.
It's something to keep in mind the next time you decide to hit send. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.